The Eleaf iCare. So this is the Eleaf iCare. I bought this myself. I personally bought it from 101vape.com for $14, but you can get it from most vendors these days for around $15 to $20. So let's talk specs. So it's 30 millimeters by 14 millimeters by 75 millimeters. The output wattage is 15 watts max. The resistance range is 1.0 ohms to 3.5 ohms. E-liquid capacity is 1.8 milliliters. Battery capacity is 650 milliamp hours, and you can get this in either black, gold, white, cyan, or red. So in the box, you get the iCare, two 1.1 ohm coils, a USB charging cable, and a user manual. Now for the size, video just doesn't do it justice. This is probably the smallest device I've ever held in my hand. It's extremely tiny. It stands 3 inches tall and is a little over an inch wide. It's tiny, but it feels very comfortable in the hand. The mouthpiece is positioned so that you need to turn the device sideways to vape it. This is a very comfortable position because you can place another finger beneath it to hold it. Before I actually held one of these in my hand, I always assumed they were made of plastic, but that's not true. The first thing that I noticed when I held it in my hand is that it's made of what feels like a very durable metal. It's got a bit of surprising weight for its size. It's not uncomfortably heavy by any means. I'm just pointing this out because it seems very durable. Now for filling the tank, it's very easy. You unscrew the coil pipe and squeeze e-juice into the fill hole on the tank. The hole has a nice diameter size so that you don't have to worry about spilling e-juice while you're trying to fill it up. The only drawback I can see with this filling system is that there will be e-juice dripping off of the coil pipe while you're trying to fill it. There is a fill line on the glass that tells you how far to fill the tank. If you fill past this line with the coil pipe out, the tank will overflow when you put the coil pipe back in. One problem that I found with the little window, at least on mine, is that it's kind of hard to see. Now let's talk about the coils. The iCare uses 1.1 ohm replaceable coil heads. Before attaching the coil to the coil pipe, Eleaf recommends that you prime the coil by placing 2 to 3 drops onto the coil. As far as the coil performance goes, they seem to wick very well. I took about 15 drags consecutively very quickly and never got a dry hit. One con with these coils though is that they seem to flood pretty easily. After letting the iCare sit for longer than a few minutes, the first couple of drags always seems to have a little bit of spit back, but it goes away. Alright, let's talk function. So the device pushes 15 watts max. It will continue to push 15 watts until the battery drops to a 3.7 volt charge. After this point, the wattage changes based on the battery level. I used an Ohm's law calculator to get a better idea of how the wattage changes. So at a 4.2 to 3.7 volt charge, you get about 15 watts. At about 3.6 volts, you get 11.78 watts. 3.5, you get 11.14 watts. 3.4 volts, you get 10.5 watts, and then 3.3 volts, which is nearly dead, you get 9.9 watts. So as the battery level reduces, the performance reduces. The iCare will stop working when the battery reaches 3.3 volts, and then you'll need to recharge it to make it work again. If you're a newer vapor, you don't need to worry about any of this. Just remember that if the vape seems weak, it might need to be recharged. It's draw activated, which means there's no button that you need to push to activate it. You simply take a drag and it fires. This makes it really easy to use for people who are new to vaping, and also probably helps with maintaining a little similarity to smoking, which is very important for smokers who are transitioning to vaping. There are 3 color LEDs that show how much charge is left in the battery. Green shows a charge between 16% to 100%, yellow means the battery level is between 6% to 15%, and red means that there's less than 5% charge left. When it gets to red, you'll probably only get a few more drags out of it. According to the manual, it takes about an hour to fully charge a drained battery. From a completely dead battery, it took me about 1 hour and 20 minutes to fully charge, but you can start vaping it again before it's fully charged if you want. I have noticed that it's a little bit hard to see the lights when you're vaping. You kind of have to go cross-eyed to see it, or vape in the dark. Alright, now for airflow, there is an airflow control ring that has 5 tiny holes. The more holes that are open, the less restricted the airflow gets. If you want a really restricted airflow, you can leave one airflow hole open. I found that the more restricted you make it, the more juice you suck into the coil while you're vaping, which leads to a bit of gurgling due to the coil flooding. The flooding goes away after a couple of drags, but still something worth mentioning. If you want to do a direct lung hit, you can open all of the airflow holes. It's still restricted, but it's a nice option to have. You can also remove the airflow control ring entirely if you want to maximize airflow. One con with the airflow control is that it sits in the tank, which means you need to unscrew the coil pipe to access it. That means you'll get e-juice on your fingers when adjusting it. It's not a huge deal, but it can be a little bit messy. Now devices like this are designed for high nicotine e-juice. For example, I purchased 24 milligram nicotine e-juice. I would never use 24 milligram in any of my tanks or RDAs. Not only would it probably make me really dizzy, but it would have an extremely harsh throat hit. I normally vape 6 milligrams nicotine in my sub-ohm atomizers, but in the iCare, 24 milligrams seems perfect. It doesn't have a harsh throat hit at all. just something to keep in mind if you're trying to figure out what nicotine levels to start with. So yeah, it's a pretty nice kit. You can get it for really cheap. It has been working great for me. Some of the paint is chipping off a little bit on me, but no big deal. Charges pretty quickly. And the one con though that I've noticed is that after a while you take the top cap off and there's e-juice all on the inside. So I don't think it leaks, but I think it's just when you take a drag, some of that e-juice is coming out and then it falls back inside the top cap. So it can get a little bit messy. I've also noticed that the airflow control, I like the way the airflow control is, but I would have liked it to get even more restricted, like really, really tight for anyone who wants something just exactly like a cigarette. On this one, I can't get it that tight, even with the airflow holes all the way closed, but it's still pretty good. But overall, I really like this device. I've been carrying it around with me everywhere, and I just really like using it. So like I said, you can pick this up from any major vape retailer online, or you might even find it in some vape shops. It's pretty cheap at about $14 to $20, somewhere around there. Yeah, it's a really nice starter device.